Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the heavy silence of a house, now devoid of its master, a young man stood listening to the tick-tock of time. Outside, a gust of wind howled, while inside, Eric's heart mirrored its hum, reaching a crescendo. His eyes darted restlessly across his mother's neatly kept rooms, his pointer finger tracing her fleeting essence, a delicate phantom that was her perfume. His mind raced. 18 years of pushing his adolescent urges aside in her absence culminated in this moment. As his ragged breath fogged the window glass, he watched each puff float upwards, dissipating into evanescence. Eric's gaze fell on the closet, its mirrored doors reflecting his uncertain expression. Before he could second-guess himself, Eric slid open the closet. His breath caught as he spotted it. A vibrant red silk cocktail dress hanging amongst the sea of muted business attire. The fabric shimmered in the afternoon light, beckoning him closer. With trembling hands, Eric reached out and touched the dress. The silk was cool and smooth against his fingertips. He glanced over his shoulder, half expecting his mother to appear, despite knowing she was halfway across the country by now. Heart pounding, Eric carefully removed the dress from its hanger. He held it up against his body, marveling at how the color complemented his brown hair. Without allowing himself to overthink, he stripped down to his underwear and slipped the dress over his head. The silk caressed his skin as it settled into place. Eric turned to face the full-length mirror, his eyes widening at the transformation. The dress hugged his slender frame in all the right places, accentuating curves he didn't even know he had. He smoothed his hands down the sides, reveling in the sensation. His gaze drifted to his mother's shoe collection. A pair of black stilettos caught his eye. With a mixture of excitement and trepidation, Eric slipped them on, wobbling slightly as he adjusted to the height. He took a few tentative steps, amazed at how quickly he adapted to walking in heels. Eric spent the next hour exploring this new version of himself. He experimented with his mother's makeup, applying mascara and a bold red lipstick to match the dress. Each addition brought him closer to an image he'd only ever dreamed about. As the sun began to set, reality came crashing back. Eric carefully removed the makeup and changed back into his regular clothes, making sure to leave everything exactly as he'd found it. But the memory of how he'd felt in that dress lingered, impossible to shake. The following days passed in a blur of classes and homework, but Eric's mind kept drifting back to that afternoon. He found himself paying more attention to the girls at school, not out of attraction, but studying their mannerisms and style choices. When Jenny, his lab partner and longtime friend, asked him to the upcoming dance, Eric agreed without hesitation. However, a week before the event, Jenny called in tears. Her grandmother had fallen ill, and she needed to fly out of state to be with her family. Eric assured her it was okay, but as he hung up the phone, a wild idea began to form in his mind. He stood in front of his mother's closet once again, this time with purpose. The red dress seemed to glow, daring him to take the next step. Eric took a deep breath and reached for it, his decision made. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Eric practiced walking in heels until his feet ached. He watched countless makeup tutorials online, perfecting his technique. He even ordered a brown wig matching his natural hair color to complete the illusion. On the night of the dance, Eric locked himself in the bathroom, heart racing as he began his transformation. He carefully applied foundation, contouring his face to soften his features. False eyelashes and smoky eyeshadow made his eyes pop. The wig, once properly positioned, framed his face perfectly. Eric slipped into the red dress, relishing the familiar feel of silk against his skin. He'd stuffed a bra to create the illusion of a feminine figure. As he zipped up the back, he caught sight of himself in the mirror and gasped. Staring back at him was Vanessa, the person he'd always felt he was meant to be. With trembling hands, Eric, now Vanessa, grabbed a small clutch purse and headed for the door. Each step in the black heels felt like a victory, a defiance against years of repression. The Uber driver barely gave her a second glance as she slid into the back seat, offering only a polite nod. As they approached the school, Vanessa's nerves threatened to overwhelm her. What if someone recognized her? What if they laughed or, worse, reacted with disgust? She took a deep breath, steeling herself. She'd come too far to back out now. The gymnasium had been transformed for the night, streamers and balloons creating a festive atmosphere. Music pulsed through the air as Vanessa stepped inside. She paused at the threshold, scanning the crowd nervously. "Oh my God, I love your dress!" a voice exclaimed. Vanessa turned to see Amber, one of the most popular girls in school, beaming at her. "Where did you get it?" Vanessa's voice caught in her throat for a moment, before she managed to reply in a soft, higher pitch. "It was my mother's. Vintage." Amber linked arms with her, pulling her further into the room. "Well, it's absolutely gorgeous! Come on, you have to meet my friends!" Before she knew it, Vanessa found herself in the middle of a group of girls, all complimenting her outfit and asking about her makeup techniques. She answered as best she could, growing more confident with each passing minute. As the night wore on, Vanessa danced and laughed, feeling truly free for the first time in her life. She even slow danced with a boy from her English class, her heart racing as he placed his hands on her waist. The principal's voice cut through the music, announcing it was time to crown the best-dressed attendees. Vanessa barely registered her name, or rather, the name she'd given at the door, being called until Amber squealed and pushed her towards the stage. In a daze, Vanessa accepted the tiara and sash, smiling broadly as cameras flashed. She caught sight of her reflection in a nearby mirror and felt a surge of pride. This was who she was meant to be. As the dance wound down, Vanessa said her goodbyes, promising to stay in touch with her new friends. She stepped out into the cool night air, feeling both exhilarated and exhausted. The Uber ride home was a blur of emotion. Vanessa's mind raced with the possibilities this night had opened up. She knew there would be challenges ahead, telling her mother, facing potential backlash at school. But for now, she allowed herself to bask in the glow of acceptance. Back home, Vanessa carefully removed her makeup and wig, storing them safely away. She hung the red dress back in her mother's closet, running her hand over the silk one last time. As she crawled into bed, still wearing the best-dressed sash, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. Eric closed his eyes, knowing that when he woke up, things would be different. Vanessa was no longer just a secret fantasy. She was real, and she was here to stay. The journey ahead would be difficult, but after tonight, he knew it was one he had to take. The next morning, Eric awoke to the sound of his phone buzzing incessantly. Bleary-eyed, he reached for it, only to find a flood of notifications. His heart raced as he scrolled through countless friend requests and messages from people he'd met at the dance, all addressed to Vanessa. Reality crashed over him like a wave. Last night hadn't been a dream. He'd really done it. He'd gone to the dance as Vanessa and won Best Dressed. As the fog of sleep lifted, Eric felt a mixture of elation and panic. What now? He spent the morning responding to messages, carefully crafting a persona for Vanessa. He told his new friends that he was a visiting cousin in town for a few weeks. It bought him some time to figure out his next move. As the day wore on, Eric found himself standing in front of his mother's closet once again. The red dress hung there, a testament to the previous night's transformation. His fingers trailed over the silk, remembering how it had felt against his skin. Without fully realizing what he was doing, Eric found himself slipping the dress on once more. He added the wig, applied a touch of makeup, and stepped into the black heels. Vanessa stared back at him from the mirror, more confident than ever. He spent the afternoon as Vanessa, practicing his walk and voice, refining the persona he'd created. It felt right in a way nothing else ever had. As the sun began to set, Eric reluctantly changed back into his regular clothes, but the memory of Vanessa lingered. The following week at school was surreal. Eric moved through the halls, overhearing snippets of conversation about the mysterious Vanessa who had taken the dance by storm. He kept his head down, a secret smile playing at his lips. Jenny returned from visiting her grandmother, full of apologies for missing the dance. Eric assured her it was fine, struggling to keep the tremor out of his voice as he recounted a fabricated, boring evening at home. As they walked to class together, Jenny nudged him. "Hey, did you hear about that girl Vanessa? Apparently she was amazing. Amber won't stop talking about her." Eric's heart skipped a beat.
"Oh yeah?"
he managed, trying to sound casual. "What about her?" Jenny launched into a detailed description of Vanessa's dress, her poise, how she'd charmed everyone at the dance. Eric listened, a warm glow spreading through his chest. He'd done it. He'd created a persona so convincing that even his closest friend had no idea it was him. The days that followed were a balancing act. Eric threw himself into his schoolwork, trying to distract himself from the constant pull of Vanessa. But every afternoon, he found himself back in front of that closet, fingers itching to touch the red silk. He began to experiment more, ordering clothes online and having them delivered to a nearby locker. Skirts, blouses, dresses. Each new item allowed him to explore different facets of Vanessa's personality. He practiced makeup techniques late into the night, perfecting the art of contouring and highlighting. As his skills improved, so did his confidence. Eric started venturing out as Vanessa, first just quick trips to the corner store, then longer excursions to the mall or park. Each successful outing emboldened him further. One Saturday afternoon, while browsing a boutique as Vanessa, he ran into Amber. His heart nearly stopped, certain he'd be discovered. But Amber's face lit up with recognition and delight. "Vanessa! Oh my God, what are you doing here? I thought you'd gone back home." She pulled him into a hug, the scent of her perfume enveloping him. Thinking quickly, Vanessa smiled. "I decided to extend my stay. It's so good to see you, Amber." They spent the next hour shopping together, Amber insisting on helping Vanessa pick out new outfits. As they chatted and laughed, Eric marveled at how natural it felt. This was the easy friendship he'd always envied between girls. As they parted ways, Amber grabbed Vanessa's hand. "We're having a girls' night next weekend. You have to come. I'll text you the details." Before Eric could formulate an excuse, he found himself agreeing. Amber's smile was infectious, and the prospect of another night as Vanessa was too tempting to resist. The week leading up to the girls' night was a roller coaster of emotions. Eric vacillated between excitement and terror, wondering if he was pushing his luck too far. But every time he looked in the mirror and saw Vanessa staring back, He knew he couldn't back out. Saturday evening arrived, and Eric began his now familiar transformation routine. He chose a deep blue dress this time, pairing it with silver accessories. The wig was styled into loose waves, framing his face softly. As he applied the final touches of makeup, Eric took a deep breath. This was it, a real test of Vanessa's ability to blend in. The Uber dropped him off at Amber's house, music already spilling from the open windows. Vanessa smoothed down her dress and rang the doorbell, heart pounding. Amber flung the door open, her face lighting up. "Vanessa, you made it!" She pulled her inside, where a group of girls from school were gathered in the living room. "Everyone, this is Vanessa. You remember, from the dance?" A chorus of greetings and compliments washed over Vanessa as she was ushered into the room. She recognized most of the girls from school, including Jenny. For a moment, panic flared in her chest. Surely her best friend would recognize her. But Jenny just smiled warmly, offering her a glass of punch. "I'm so glad to finally meet you, Vanessa. I've heard so much about you." As the night progressed, Vanessa found herself relaxing. The girls swapped stories, did each other's nails, and danced to pop hits. It was everything Eric had ever imagined a girls' night to be, and he was part of it. During a lull in the party, Jenny pulled Vanessa aside. "Can I ask you something?" she said, her voice low. Vanessa's pulse quickened. "Of course," she managed, keeping her voice steady. Jenny bit her lip. "This might sound weird, but you remind me so much of my friend Eric. It's like you could be siblings or something. Do you have any relatives around here?" For a moment, Vanessa froze. This was it, the moment of truth. She could confess everything right now, lay bare her secret to her oldest friend. But as she looked into Jenny's curious eyes, she made a different choice. "No relatives here," Vanessa said with a soft laugh. "But maybe Eric and I just have one of those faces, you know? I'd love to meet him sometime, though. He sounds nice." Jenny nodded, seemingly satisfied with the answer. As she wandered off to rejoin the others, Vanessa let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She'd dodged a bullet, but the close call left her shaken. As the party wound down, Vanessa said her goodbyes, promising to stay in touch. She stepped out into the cool night air, her mind whirling. The evening had been everything she'd hoped for, but Jenny's question had brought reality crashing back. How long could she keep this up? How many close calls could she navigate before someone figured it out? And what would happen when they did? The Uber ride home was silent, Vanessa lost in thought. As she removed her makeup and wig, staring at Eric's reflection in the mirror, she knew she had a decision to make. This double life was exhilarating, but it was also exhausting and increasingly risky. Eric crawled into bed, the blue dress hanging in his closet next to the red one that had started it all. As he drifted off to sleep, one thought kept circling in his mind. It was time to tell the truth, to everyone. The question was, how? The next morning, Eric woke with a sense of determination. He'd spent half the night tossing and turning, weighing his options, but in the end, there was really only one path forward. It was time to be honest, with his mother, with Jenny, with everyone. He started by calling his mother, asking her to come home early if she could. There was something important they needed to discuss. The concern in her voice was evident, but Eric assured her he was okay, just that this couldn't wait. Next, he texted Jenny, asking if they could meet at the park later that afternoon. His fingers hovered over the keys as he debated how much to reveal in the message. In the end, he simply wrote, There's something I need to tell you. It's big. With those two conversations set in motion, Eric turned his attention to the task at hand. He carefully packed up all of Vanessa's clothes and accessories, storing them in a large duffel bag. Each item held a memory now: the red dress from the dance, the blue one from the girls' night, the countless outfits he'd worn on his secret outings. As he zipped up the bag, Eric felt a pang of loss. Part of him wondered if he was making a mistake, if he should just try to keep Vanessa separate from his real life. But he knew, deep down, that Vanessa was his real life. She was who he was meant to be, and it was time for the world to know. The afternoon sun was warm on his face as Eric made his way to the park. He'd chosen to dress as himself for this meeting, wanting Jenny to see the full transformation when he explained everything. His palms were sweaty as he spotted her sitting on a bench near the pond. "Hey," Jenny said as he approached, her brow furrowed with concern. "What's going on, Eric? You sounded so serious in your text." Eric took a deep breath, sitting down beside her. "Jenny, you're my best friend. You have been for years. And there's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you a long time ago." He launched into the story, starting with that first afternoon in his mother's closet. Jenny listened silently, her eyes widening as Eric described his transformation into Vanessa, the night of the dance, the girls' night at Amber's. When he finished, silence hung between them for a long moment. Eric's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for her reaction. Finally, Jenny spoke. "Oh, Eric," she said softly, reaching out to take his hand. "I had no idea you were struggling with this. I wish you'd told me sooner." Relief washed over Eric. "You're not mad? Or freaked out?" Jenny shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. "Of course not. You're my best friend no matter what. I just wish I could have been there for you through all of this." They talked for hours, Eric answering Jenny's questions and sharing his fears and hopes for the future. As the sun began to set, he felt lighter than he had in months. Telling Jenny had been the right choice. "So, what now?" Jenny asked as they stood to leave. Eric took a deep breath. "Now I tell my mom, and then I guess I figure out how to be Vanessa full-time." Jenny squeezed his hand. "Whatever you need, I'm here. We'll figure it out together." As Eric walked home, he felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. The conversation with his mother loomed ahead, but having Jenny's support gave him strength. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. His mother's car was in the driveway when he arrived home. Eric paused at the front door, taking a moment to gather his courage. This was it, the moment that would change everything. He found her in the kitchen, unpacking groceries. She looked up as he entered, concern etched on her face. "Eric, honey, what's going on? I came home as soon as I could." Eric took a deep breath. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been hiding for a long time." Over the next hour, Eric poured out his heart. He told her about trying on her dress, about going to the dance as Vanessa, about the girls' night, and all the secret outings in between. His mother listened silently, her expression unreadable. When he finished, Eric held his breath, waiting for her response. To his surprise, she stood and pulled him into a tight hug. "Oh, my sweet child," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "I had no idea you were going through all of this alone. I'm so sorry I wasn't here for you." Eric felt tears welling up in his eyes.
You're not disappointed?
His mother pulled back, cupping his face in her hands. Disappointed? Never. I love you no matter what. I just want you to be happy and true to yourself. They spent the rest of the evening talking, making plans for the future. Eric's mother promised to support him through his transition, offering to help him find a therapist and explore medical options if that was what he wanted. As Eric crawled into bed that night, he felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead would be challenging, but he was no longer alone. He had Jenny, he had his mother, and most importantly, he had the freedom to be his true self. The next morning, Eric, soon to be Vanessa full-time, woke up with a smile on his face. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was standing on solid ground, ready to face whatever came next. The journey of becoming Vanessa was just beginning, but now, surrounded by love and support, she knew she could handle anything.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!